up YouTube? Jeremiah Hersey here, and welcome to the next episode of my Node to Pro series. Today we're going to be talking about navigation functions. In the last video we were talking about row context, and as we were creating calculated columns we were only able to see one row at a time inside of a table. And I talked briefly about if you wanted to reach out to other tables, you'll have to use a navigation function. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So when you're in row context, so when we're inside of a table working one row at a time or iterating one row at a time, so this could be inside of a calculated column. This could also be inside of a iterator function like an X function, which we'll talk about in another episode, or the filter function. We're stuck inside that table, and so in order to reach out to other tables, we're going to have to use what's known as a navigation function. So if you want to follow along, there's a link in the description for the PBI file so you can follow along, and let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so here we are in our data model, and I just want to use this to explain the navigation functions real quick. So my fact table is highlighted in red, that's our central table, and then we have our dimension table over here in blue. And once again, all of these on the outside are known as dimension tables. We talked about that in a video describing the star schema. But what I really want to get you to understand is that there are two different navigation functions that we're going to be using here today. And so the two of them are related and related table. Now, when do you use one over the other? Well, when you're reaching out from a dimension table, okay, so we're reaching from a dimension table to our fact table. We want to pull back the entire table associated based on this link right here. So when you're reaching out from a dimension table to a fact table, you're going to use the related table option. So when you're going from the one side to the many, we're going to use related table. We want to bring back the entire table of values based on the filter. If we're in the fact table and we're reaching out to a dimension, we only want usually one value. And so when you're in a fact table reaching out to a dimension, you're going to be using the related function. Now this does take a little bit of practice to remember which one to use, but Power BI is great about helping us to eliminate what we don't need as far as the IntelliSense in the DAX is concerned. So just a quick recap, just to go back, if you're going from the dimension table to the fact table, you're going to use the related table option. If you are going from the fact table to a dimension table, you're going to use the related function. Okay, so these are the two navigation functions that we're going to be using here. So it's important to know where we're at inside of the model and what table we're reaching out to. So for today, we are going to be focusing on these two tables right here, the stock item table and the sale table. Okay. So the stock item key is what the relationship is based off of. And so we're going to go over to our data view and we're going to go to our stock item table. So here we are. And so once again, as we create a calculated column, so I'm just going to go up here to the top and select new column. What's going to happen is row context is now taking part. So as we build calculated columns, row context comes into play, meaning we can only see the table one row at a time, and any active relationships between the tables are deactivated. So let's say, for instance, I want to know for this particular product, so this joke mug, how many times it was sold. Well, that is in my sales table, that information is. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call this, I'll call this total purchased. So this is going to be how many of this specific stock item has been purchased. Now remember, we're in row context, which means as of right now, Power BI can only see this very first row of this table, nothing else. The relationships are deactivated. We can't return any other information from the sales table. So watch, if I try to use a single tick mark to call it to the sales table, notice that it does not work. The only table that appears is stock item because we're in row context. So what we want to do here is we want to use a navigation function. So we're in our dimension and we're going to be reaching out to the sales table. And so what I want to do is I just want to count how many rows are in that table based on this stock item. So the first function I'm going to use is a count rows function. You can see it down here. Count rows, and then it's asking me what table do you want to count the rows of. Now this is where we're going to introduce our navigation function. I need to activate the relationship between stock item and sales. So the table that I'm reaching out to is the fact table. So in that case, I'm going to use the navigation function related table. Notice that related doesn't even pop up in this case, and that's because the count rows function is expecting a table parameter, so I have to return a table. Once again, the related table function returns the entire table. All right, so we're going to use related table. Now, what table do we want to use? That's, of course, our sales table. So what's going to happen now is using this navigation function, it now takes this stock item key 163. It's going to filter down the sales table to stock item key 163, and then it's going to count the rows to give us how many items were purchased. So let's go ahead and return that and see what we get here. And we always want to validate our information. So we're going to see here that we're going to get 1014. We always want to verify that the information that we're getting is correct. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go over to sales, and I'm going to filter down on that stock item key of 163. And what we should get at the bottom is a count of the rows that's going to say 1014. And we can see down here in the bottom, there are 1014 filtered rows. So that's how the relationship works. We've activated using the related table function, and it is now able to filter down the sales table based on that specific key. So I'm back on my stock item here. What if I wanted to get how much profit was associated to this? So once again, I'm going to create a new column. When we create a column, we're now once again back in row context. So let's call this total profit. So for this one, I want to find the total profit of a specific column. Well, I can't just call out to that column from the sales table, once again, because we're in row context. And so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a iterator function, a SUMX function. This is going to take the sum of a table. Notice the first parameter here is a table. This is going to allow me to use my navigation function. Once again, we're reaching out to the fact table, so I'm going to use the related table option. And once again, the related table is the sales table. Now in this case, it's asking me, okay, you have this table, what do you want to sum up? I want to sum up the sale table, the profit column here. So notice I can pull back the columns within inside of the table now. So what this is going to do is filter the sales table down to stock item key of 163 and then take a sum of the profit column. So we'll go ahead and return that. And we can see we're starting to get some values here. So it's going to sum up that column, the profit column from inside the sales table after the filtering has occurred here on that stock item key. All right, let's bounce over to our sales table and let's see the opposite of that. So once again, depending upon what table you're in, right now I'm in my fact table. So if I'm in my fact table, reaching out to a dimension, that is when I'm going to use the related function. Okay, so it depends on what table you're in. So if you're in the fact table reaching out to a dimension, you're going to use related. If you're in a dimension reaching out to a fact table, you're going to use related table. All right, so let's select our sales table here. Let's do something simple here. Let's just pull in maybe the color. Okay, so I'm going to create a new column here inside the sales table. Once again, we're stuck in row context. Anytime we're creating a calculated column, we can only see one row at a time, and active relationships are not working. So I'm going to call this my color, and we're going to reach out to the stock item table. If I try to do it directly, notice that it does not work because I'm in row context. So I need to use the related function in this case because I'm reaching out to just a specific column. In this case, I'm going to reach out to the stock item table, the color column. So what this is going to do is now use the relationships between sales and stock item to filter down to retrieve the stock item color. The biggest difference here is that related only brings back one value. So when you're only looking for one value, you're going to be using the related function. If you want to bring back a whole table of values, that's related table. So let's go ahead and return that. And we'll be able to see the color that's associated to this specific product. So this developer joke mug, this one's white. The DBA joke mug, this one's in black. So you can see we're able to pull back the colors associated to it. I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I know this is going to take a little bit of practice. Just remember, if you're on a dimension table reaching out to the fact table, you're going to use related table. If you're on the fact table reaching out to a dimension, that's related. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more content. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you in the next one.